infinite.
Shoutouts to Akai on this one. Late on Sunday night, a post of theirs appeared on the timeline showing a Kindle store page touting a very generic, very cyber, very AI generated book cover, sporting what can only be described as a generic blonde karate fighter 1, let's call him Chucky Bryan, facing off against a generic brunette karate fighter 2, Aki Ryuki. The book claims to be a guide to Virtua Fighter 5 Revo, offering all the things you'd want from a fighting game guide. But as you can imagine, the terrible AI art got the Virtua Fighter community's watchdogs barking and trying to determine whether the book itself was AI or not. Times are tough, maybe it was an earnest attempt at a fighting game guide and the author just didn't have the resources or the contacts to commission no, it's AI. The whole book is AI. The cover, the words, maybe even the author's name at this point. I mean, who's got the time and effort to think of things like that for themselves in 2025? So save your money, save your curiosity. I've painstakingly read AI-generated sentence after AI-generated sentence so you don't have to. And if you need any more convincing that an AI-generated guide isn't the right choice for improving your fighting game prowess, in this video I'm going to break down some of the inaccuracies and issues that this book has, as well as offer some alternative places to go to get the proper answers to all of your Virtua Fighter 5 Revo questions. Before we begin, it's worth pointing out that this is the tip of the iceberg for AI books on the Amazon, Audible and Kindle marketplaces. If you've ever seen the Folding Ideas video Contrapreneurs, the Mickelson twins, just imagine their grift map of generating low-quality, exploitative slop for Audible, but instead of exploiting people in content farms and on Fiverr for ideas, skills, and even reviews, you can now just churn all of that stuff out of generative AI tools for free and instantly. And it's at this point you might be thinking that the productivity of spam could just explode by magnitudes of slop overnight with these techniques. And it absolutely has. This one Virtua Fighter guide is a drop in an extremely miserable ocean that only further confirms any dead internet theory fears that we've lost control of the internet as we know it, and that authenticity online is going to become harder and harder to fight for as the grey goo of self-generated online entities and artifacts mercilessly trudges on. It's no coincidence that all of the books written by Maxim Quill were published on only 3 different days over a 2 to 3 week span, as though they were generated and shipped in batches, and that the pen name Maxim Quill has no online presence outside of a potential MAGA-era Twitter account wishing to combat fake news. Fitting. The last thing I want to do is exchange real money for fake effort, so in the end I've taken the Kindle Unlimited free trial in order to see the full thing. The free sample of the book was winding me up way too much. After reading the whole thing, it's important to point out that the book isn't some horrific acid trip mess of nonsense that AI memes were packed with 12 months ago. You're not going to be told to put glue on your pizza, run with scissors, or jump off the Golden Gate Bridge. AI-generated content is way more boring than that now. Outside of repeatedly telling you that Virtua Fighter is unlike other fighting games and doesn't have magic moves, it simply doesn't tell you anything at all. Presumably the book has been written by a robot that's simply scraping the top search results for the game, because what it presents back to you mostly reads as a game review / press release / Reddit page. For the most part, the only trustworthy information it states can be found on the Virtua Fighter store page and is objective information about the game, what modes it has, what Virtua Fighter is, what resolution it plays at. Nothing that's going to make you any better at the game. Page after page reads like that Destructoid 100% objective review of Final Fantasy XIII by Jim Stephanie Sterling that was made specifically to prove the point that removing the human element and personal opinion from video game content makes it almost valueless as both an art form and as consumable information. From there it delves into some of the things that are new to Virtua Fighter Revo, most notably pointing out that the game now has things like tournament mode and frame data, something that's been available in some form in Virtua Fighter games for the best part of 2 decades, including in the more recent iterations like Final Showdown and Ultimate Showdown. It does have some small inaccuracies that are mostly frustrating technicalities, such as implying in more than one place that an opponent must be blocking in order to execute a throw, and that the arcade mode is like playing in a real arcade. We had quest mode for this Sega, please bring back quest mode. Then there are bigger things, like its description of how the survival mode works, and its very flawed chapter dedicated to survival mode strategy, health management, and the different behaviours of the survival mode CPU. Don't worry, you're not hallucinating, the AI is. There is no survival mode in Virtua Fighter 5 Revo, no matter what advice it gives you on how to unlock it. It's at this point that the free sample of the book ends before getting into the meat of the Virtua Fighter content, and for the book's sake, this was probably a good thing. Up to here, the book comes across as a nothing burger. Lots of general information that's piled up, probably not worth paying for, but not harmfully incorrect, just a load of unhelpful prose that you've wasted your time and money on. As you read on, however, literally lines after the end of the sample, the slop really does begin to manifest. It describes punches as exclusively fast, kicks as exclusively slow, P plus Ks as exclusively punches, K plus Gs as exclusively kicks, and generally generalises the characters and inputs across the board. The lack of magic it kept repeatedly insisting on goes away fast, as it describes Kage as someone to pick if you want teleport tricks, and that Jackie is a kickboxer. The obnoxiously short matchup guide gives you some stellar advice about picking fast characters like Eileen, if you want to beat stronger, slower characters like Jeffrey, and if you want to beat an Eileen, you should of course pick a stronger, slower character like Jeffrey. This is one of those things that predictive algorithms and LLMs are frequently going to fail at. They're determined to please you and tell you what you want to hear, and they do this by guessing the best next set of words, but they don't have the intelligence or nuance to compare those words with the words that have already been said. Ask ChatGPT for the same information twice, you will get two brand new, completely unique pieces of writing that do not consider each other in the slightest. Not two identical or even complementary pieces, because every time you ask, the AI only knows how to guess its way forward. This is further reinforced by looking at what is promised in the content section, like in-depth character guides, which the how to use section tells you to read thoroughly, before not including any character guides at all, and repeating the same information over and over, or in a peculiar order. The same online strategies appear several chapters apart on dealing with aggressive players and tricksters, offering the same information each time in slightly different words, and telling you over and over again to just stay calm. As the AI content begins to flow, it gets more and more confident, recommending some simple combos for most characters, like PPK, which is kinda true, but then KKP, then delving into universal advanced combos, universal strings to pick at different ranges. What are these? Up P and down K are launchers? But wait, down K is also a sweep? Down plus P plus K is an uppercut? What character is this? It's never specified, so presumably all of them? And at every turn it will tell you, you must master this, before changing subject completely and elaborating no further, because it simply has ran out of cold read keywords to drop on the topic. Did you know that if you repeat a combo 100 times, you will land it perfectly in fights without hesitation? The how to fight against each character section covers Akira, Pi, and Wolf before completely giving up and moving on to something else. I'm guessing the AI was trained on my content for that part. Before going back into another round of explaining how to punish moves, how to stay calm, how to pick a character, the carousel of the same vague advice over and over again. Oh wait, secrets and unlockables, here we go. There must be something in here at least. Did you know that unlocking the two special stages, Mirror Chamber and Rooftop Night Battle, gives you more variety in your fights and makes the game feel fresh? Did you know that when you defeat 20 opponents in the normal, non-existent survival mode, you can unlock Survival Extreme Mode? Unlocking this feature gives you new ways to enjoy the game. And don't forget to check in every few months for Virtua Fighter 5 Revo's limited time cosmetics and event items. Gotta save up your fight coins and gold tokens for those. At this point it goes into some classic school homework essay fattening techniques, like delving into the history of Virtua Fighter, listing different versions, another go on the carousel of how Virtua Fighter isn't like other fighting games, like a high school student with 30 minutes left to hit a word count. Oh, and don't forget to stay calm. It closes off with some FAQs and another round of pro tips like staying calm, how to stay calm, how to stay patient and calm. It does recommend virtuafighter.com, which is nice considering it probably scraped the whole site and forum to generate itself, as well as recommending shoryuken.com, which was probably referenced on the forums in several places back when it existed as a website and before all that content was moved into Super Combo. And then it forgets that it's right in the end of the book and it goes back into repeating tips for training mode. Look, it's easy and somewhat pointless to poke fun at the contradictions and failings of a robot trying to emulate a creative person producing creative work. But hopefully this puts a nail in the matter as far as the concept of using generative AI to produce advice on something that requires discovery, practice, creativity, hard work and commitment to a craft. It's insulting to try and sidestep that in the face of a community and audience that value hard work and the journey themselves. Because it has been trained on good content from community contributors and contribution platforms like virtuafighter.com, shoryuken.com, Core A Gaming and Avoiding the Puddle, all of whom it indirectly credits, there are some things in the book that are technically true and technically useful. It has some sound advice about the importance of training and focusing on good movement and ring awareness. It's in there somewhere, presumably because that's what all the people that take the time to make real guides are saying, but this book has in no way provided a service by putting them all in one place due to the huge amount of gruel it's had to churn out in order to try and convince you that it's a human that knows what it's talking about. If anything, this book just further advertised by existing that there is sufficient human useful information out there on the internet that's likely more up to date, more battle tested, and most importantly has a higher propensity to support the Virtua Fighter and fighting game communities when you consume it. Want to know the differences between Virtua Fighter 5 Revo and the other iterations of Virtua Fighter 5? Read the actual patch notes provided by the developers, which don't make up modes and give you actual usable update information about the gameplay. Want some beginner's essentials? Check out this guide from Juicebox, a fighting game pro who's coached and authored tutorial content for years. Want to know the mechanics? Dandy, creator of some of the best tutorials of all time, created one of the best tutorials of all time for Final Showdown. Mindset and strategy? Book an appointment with Dr. Tricky. How to pick a character? That's Rooflemonger's bread and butter. Character specific info? virtuafighter.com and a host of creators are ready for you once you know who you're playing. Just type your character's name in the search box on any content or social media platform you choose. By comparison, the person that wrote this guide, the person that prompted a bot to write this guide, either does not know, does not care, or likely both. I imagine I've read this book now more times than they did before they shipped it. At 100% AI likelihood from the majority of the analysis tools I used, this probably had zero to close to zero human intervention or review before it was published. And if it's not good enough for the people peddling this stuff, why should it be good enough for you? And to be clear, this isn't gatekeeping who can make content. You don't just have to go to the best or oldest sources. And I'm not claiming that nothing that already exists can't be improved upon by someone that actually gives a shit. In fact, anyone can and should create content for Virtua Fighter at any level with the knowledge that it will be more useful, relevant and accurate than something aggregated and dumped out by ChatGPT. The only threat books like this serve to real Virtua Fighter fans come from a lack of visibility and availability of human alternatives. If you do need advice and search for training mode tips and don't think the content out there is up to date or helpful at your level, jump into Reddit, jump into the Discords, ask the questions and pay the community back for their support and answers by making content your own out of what you've learned from them, so that the next person that goes looking for it finds you before they find this. And with that, I've probably got some videos to make. I'll see you soon.